And the Associate Minister to Marianne Williamson. So we have a true gem in our midst this morning. We give great thanks for Reverend Sandy. Please come forward.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. This isn't overnight, isn't it? Well, I'm here to talk about the mystic Buddha. I think, for me, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha was a mystic, and for me, Ernest Shurtleff Holm was a mystic, because if you heard in the reading that suffering is necessary until you know it's unnecessary, and one of my favorite things from Ernest Holmes is illness is a fact, it's not the truth. So there's so much more than facts. Facts are temporary, truth doesn't change. So if we embrace the facts with this teaching, probably with any teaching, but today we're going to talk about the Dharma wheel, but if we embrace facts with a greater truth, you know, it gives space around, gives you some wiggle room. It also gives the universe some space for inputting, if you know what I mean. It's like, no, never mind. So Siddhartha was a very spoiled, protected prince. And he lived in a palace. And the walls were high, and there was a guard at every entrance, an entrance exit. And his father was a powerful king of all the land. And a mystic told him when he was born, when Siddhartha was born, that he would either be a mystic and change the world, or he would be a king and rule the world. So he became a teacher in the world, and his father was very disappointed. It was a very rugged path. I've chosen a very rugged path. I love uphill, I love boulders, I love, until I don't. Like Ernest Holmes said, that of course illness causes suffering. We don't deny that. We just deny its necessity to be there. So whatever you think about suffering, if you think there's no suffering, that's fine. If you think there's suffering, that's fine. So if you want to name suffering something else like gift or challenge, that's also true, but it's something that stops the wheel. It stops that wheel of life. So Siddhartha went on this quest. I don't know if it's, I think I said last time, churches now have video screens and big flashing lights and this and that. And my good friend Gary in Sonoma did a conference on aging. And they said, well, we'll set up your PowerPoint. He says, I don't have a PowerPoint. And they said, you don't? He said, well, don't you have an overhead? Remember those overhead projectors? So this is my overhead projector. This is my high-tech tool. So anyway, he got out. If you see a wall, you're going to get out of there, right? And so he convinced this wonderful servant to sneak him out. And so they went out, and a lot of you know what he found. He saw someone suffering. And he said, what is that? And the mystic said, that is what we all experience. And then he saw a man that was sick, very sick. And he said, what is that? You mean that's going to happen to me? And then he saw a man that was just barely breathing. And he said, that is just too much suffering. That can't be what's going to happen to me. And then he saw a corpse, a dead body. And he said, oh no, that's not going to happen to me. So he wanted to make sure it wasn't going to happen to him. And it doesn't happen if you live in the realm of spirit. It doesn't happen. Those are all temporary stages of life. And we stay in them in different ways, different intensities, different space and time. So he saw all that, and he said, I've got to find a way. So he studied with some ascetics, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat for 6 years, and he dwindled to practically nothing, just bones. And he crawled to the river, and he took a bath, and then a young lady came and gave him milk and rice. And so he came back, and he got back in his body. And then he went back to a certain amount of opulence You know, he was teaching a group, and then he left them. And he went away, and he came back, and he had clothes on, you know, really wonderful clothes on. And they said, where have you been? What have you been doing? They were really disgusted with him because here he was, all dolled up with stuff. And they said, what are you doing? He said, I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying, this is my mystic opulence. Mystic opulence is different than, I don't know, clawed for money. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if it's money, it's going to be an effort. If it's spiritualized money, Spirit is going to run through the whole thing, and you spiritualize your life with these teachings. So between got some pictures here, but you'll see them better if you come to the workshop. That's my carrot. Oh, I can't stand this. Can you? I just... Anyway. Okay. Props. He started out, I'll get it in a second. Here we go. He started out as a prince, and you can see that he has jewels, he has feet decorations, he's got armbands, he's got a lotus in his hand, he's got earrings, a big necklace, he has all that stuff, and then he sees suffering, and then he sees illness, and then he sees dying, and then he sees death. And who would want that when you're young and extremely wealthy and powerful and the heir to your father's wealth? So that's when he went to nothing. He went to nothing. There's no real foliage. He's sitting on straw, and he's gone to nothing. Then he goes away, and he comes back. I'm going this way. He comes back, and he's sitting on this beautiful lotus, and he has, you know, like a sari on, not much, and no adornment. But see, that's the middle way. From the austerity and the nothing to something, and then to balance. You know, he says the Dharma is the middle way. And the Deer Park Discourse, this is the Deer Park Discourse. It shows him and some people and some deer. And the Deer Park Discourse was when he had come to balance, when he was like this. Oops. And the monks were upset with him, but they couldn't deny his wisdom. They couldn't deny his presence, that something had really transformed his life. And although he wasn't almost naked and he wasn't dripping with jewels, he had this wonderful balance, and that's the middle way. And the Deer Park Discourse started the Dharma wheel. Like your wheel of life is turning, and it depends on balance, doesn't it? So he saw suffering. He saw suffering. He knew suffering. He said, why is the suffering? And it's clinging, isn't it? When something's wrong, isn't it that someone isn't doing something, saying something, being some certain way? When you want something different, like your spouse, like I thought my husband was a fixer-upper, not. When you want to change someone, that's craving, that's wanting something different. That takes you away from the now, takes you off the wheel. So the craving is the cause of suffering. So you see the suffering, you know the cause of suffering, and then you start waking up and say, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Why am I suffering? You know, Terry Cole Whitaker used to tell this great story. You've probably heard it. This woman was having this horrible nightmare. It was so real. She was running down this hall, and the hall ended, and that was the end. And in back of her was this slimy, green, stinky, horrible, breathing, ugly stuff monster after her, running, splat. She has to stop, and she turns around, she goes, what are you going to do to me? He says, I don't know, lady, it's your nightmare. So that's true of us, isn't it? It's like, wait a minute, this is just a nightmare. This isn't real. I can choose again. I can lift up to a higher frequency. To me, life is energy. And when we're on higher frequencies with our thoughts, our thoughts are in the middle, regulating the energy. And if we regulate it in the low frequencies, it's more solid. And if we regulate it to the higher frequencies, it's more like God. They're both okay, because in the yin yang, it's all balanced. And you know, there's some dark in the light and some light in the dark. Total balance. Nothing's wrong. We're rolling. We're rolling. If it comes apart, think of a yin yang coming apart. It's not going to roll, is it? It's not going to roll. And if it's just one of them, there's no balance. Just one of them, there's no balance. You know, people that are so spiritual, they're no earthly good. It's out of balance. It's like when he was under the tree almost naked. So what I'm going for today is the middle way, which I love. Okay, this book is by Walter Henry Nelson, and he is a wonderful scholar. And he wrote this book on Buddha, and it is fantastic. I highly recommend it. And this little swirl is him as a baby. There's two little eyes. It's very sweet. But anyway, he says, after the monks said, get out of here, and then they said, oh my God, stay here and teach us. We want what you have. The middle way is the noble eightfold path. And that Buddhism is not pessimistic, it's realistic. You know, some people think, oh, Buddhism, I have to give everything up. That's Zen Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama Buddhism is the Dharma wheel. Tibetan is all this wild stuff, you know, animals and horns and drums and all this stuff. And then it goes to Asia, it's like, So in the middle is the wheel, you know, and you can go to Zen, nothing. And you can go to go to Tibetan. I love Tibetan. I know some lamas. I studied with a lama, and they're so much fun. They're so joyful, you know. So there's joy, not hilarious joy, not nothing, but like joyful compassion, joyful living, just joyful. And you maybe go to the one side, a little less joyful, a little more joyful. It's like the balance of the singer in that song she just sang. I guess a family that plays together stays together. And anyway, she was just right, wasn't she? She started kind of slow, and then there was woo, but not too woo. You know, not screaming, not Janis Joplin woo. And then there was this wonderful flow, okay? So it's realistic, not pessimistic. And what you're living in, and I'm living in, according to this teaching, is circumscribed space. We have so much space, and then we come to form, and it's circumscribed. This is my circle. This is my space that I live in. This is Ernest Holmes' circle. And it is just the same. It's the same. Boy, did I have fun getting ready for this. I understand it like I never have. It's just way cool. What I discovered was the chakras start with the root, and they go up. And the Dharma wheel is 2, 4, 6, 8. And these two are spirit, and these two are action. So spirit, mind, and body. In that middle is where we live. The spiritual depends on the middle, and the matter depends on the middle. What's in the middle? That's what we want to have clear. We want to have that middle clear. So the balance of it, you put a wheel in the middle, a hub, and then spokes. And as it turns, life changes, doesn't it? It changes like a yin-yang. Sometimes it's white on the top, sometimes it's black on the top, but it's rolling. So to me, it's just an absolutely sensible teaching. So then he said in his Deer Park discourse, his first discourse as a balanced middle way, he said there's the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And the Four Noble Truths is what we've been talking about. You recognize suffering. You see that suffering is caused by craving, wanting, desire. You know when someone says, I want you, you go, ooh, I don't think so. And then they go too far away. But if they're just there in the moment, that's wonderful relationship, just there in the moment. So desire, says the Buddha, leads the man and makes him slave of him. So if you crave, you're a slave. If you crave something, you're a slave. If you allow it to come to you, it's peaceful. You know, like Skip doesn't have his braid anymore. He's braidless. And I said, was that hard? And he said, no, it lightened him up. But when it was a braid, it was great. Didn't you love it? I always just loved it. And now he looks great because he has little waves right there. So it turns out perfectly with the right aim, with the right attention. So you see that suffering is craving. I want his braid off. I want his braid on. I want him to love this moment. I accept him as he is, right here, right now, as a spiritual being, living a material life as best he can. Aren't you living as best you can? And we're all here to live better. And we just explore. Whoever's speaking up here is exploring, passing something on they've studied or known. Their experience, their studies. I simply want, Bonnie and I were affirming, and I said, my intention is to pass something on that's applicable and practical. And Buddhism's very, very practical. So the suffering's caused by craving. And then there is an end to suffering. You finally get around to it and you say, oh God, I didn't have to suffer. I could have had a V8. You know, I didn't have to suffer. What was that about? If other people go through this gliding, why can't I glide? You know, where's the glide? So there is an end to it, but how? How do I do it? And that's the fourth noble truth. That's the path. That's the Eightfold Path is the way out. Is the way out. It's the way to. It's the way in. It's the middle way. And it's balanced with aspects of life. It's balanced with aspects of life. I don't know why I can't find that one thing. I guess I'm supposed to do my overhead technological stuff. Okay. So you have the wheel, and then you have a half, and then you have this, and then you have this, and then you have this, kind of. And the hub is the most important part, isn't it? So the hub is your view of life. God, what is God to you? And your view becomes an aspiration. It's like, oh, this is God. What is it to me? What is it to me? And then you contemplate, and then you speak it. And you say, this is what's for me. And then you act. And then you have the doingness, you have the livelihood. And then you have the maintenance and the sustenance of it. You have to keep it going. Like if you wanted a horse and you got a horse, you did all the action, and you ride, but taking care of the horse year after year, you have to decide whether you want to continue or not. Here you start being mindful. You think, oh, that was ridiculous, but it wasn't, was it? With 20/20 hindsight, can't you see that it was perfect? It came out okay, as painful, as annoying, as repulsive as it was. You got through it, didn't you? The wheel kept rolling. You may have been stuck in one aspect of it, but it kept rolling. It kept rolling because there's balance in the hub. It just keeps rolling. And then concentration. Concentration is the focus. Okay, good. I'm mindful. This feels great. Now I'm going to focus on that, like Ernest Holmes' Sermon of the Seed, before something and against nothing. Go for that. Go for this. And this will bless everything. Or if you're just unbalanced as can be, everything's work. Everything's work. Or everything's doing. Everything's doing. Everything's talking. My father would say, that's you. So then I was contemplating. I've drawn so many circles. You know, my studying started out, I started a book for Buddhism, this notebook. And it started out blah, 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 blah. And then I copy passages. Why copy it? And then I just put words. And then I started drawing it and drawing it and drawing it. And it kept making sense. It kept making sense. So look at here. This is speak and mindful. And this is all action. And this is all spirit. Isn't that amazing? So we go round and round the circle. And if you want to stop somewhere, like a rest stop, it's just a rest stop. You don't take your sleeping bag and stay there. You get to where you're going. You know, like Moses leading the Jews through Israel from Jerusalem or Egypt to where they started to Jerusalem is 50 miles. So we'll say, let's go to El Paso. Okay, come on. Let's go to El Paso, and then what? Let's go to Hawaii. So if we want to go to Hawaii, what do we have to do? We have to decide. We have to buy the ticket. We have to pack. We have to get our home and pets cared for. We have to get transportation to El Paso. And then you make sure you have your ticket and you check your baggage. Just check it. That's it. All you have to do is get on the plane now. The plane's late. The plane's canceled. The plane's... You have to switch planes. Or you just glide through. You just go, I love the El Paso airport. I think it's wonderful with all that ironwork, the agaves, and and that fountain where you wait. So you can have a really good time at the airport in the shops, or you can just sit and scowl like most people. You know what I mean? You know what airport faces are. You know what elevator... It's because, why are they not happy? Because they want to be somewhere else. In an elevator, I want to go up. I want to go down. Come on, come on, come on. I don't want to look at these people. Get me out of here. So it's the journey, and the journey is in the middle. It's the hub. If you're in the hub, it doesn't matter which one you're experiencing. You just stay in that hub. You stay in that hub. I always said my hub is science of mind, because that's a truth that is basic and embraces everything. Everything can be included in science of mind. It doesn't make one thing wrong. It doesn't make one thing right. This is a Center for Spiritual Living based on science of mind. I can come and talk about Buddhism. I talked on Emerson. Bonnie usually talks straight science of mind, and then some other goofball comes. But all the people that stand up here just want one thing, and it's explained so well in this circle, because spirit, mind, and body, and then the V is infinite energy, absolute infinite energy at the top. And then it goes through the mind and speaking, just like the wheel. And then it goes down to form. And then the form disappears, and then all of a sudden you want to get born again, and up you go through the middle and out. So if you picture a caterpillar and a chrysalis and a butterfly, and if you're in the chrysalis, if you're not a caterpillar and you're not a butterfly, because I don't think any, I think it's in between in here, you know, going this way, but mostly in between so you can go either way. You know, you stay balanced. But if there's a lot of stuff in there, spirit can't move. If there's mom, dad, failure, fat, alcoholic, loser, if that's in there, it's going to clog spirit. You can't disappear spirit, you can only block it. So if this is either a wall or a gateway. If it's a gateway, whoosh. If it's a wall, and then, and finally you get to rest, and then, See what I mean? In all the teachings, the chakras go from solid to nothing. The wheel is view at the top and livelihood at the bottom, so it's be, do. And the way the wheel goes, this is a mess now, but anyway, it goes like this. Same thing as this. So it goes through here, and it comes to this. And then you make a decision. Is what you're doing terrific? Yes or no? Yes, keep it up. No, go on. Go on to mindful. Realize that this is suffering. Craving caused it. then you stay in it, and then you realize there's an end to it, and then you get mindful, and boom, you can't stop it from rising. You just can't stop it. So it's like this. The wheel, the wheel, the wheel. You get it? Eckhart Tolle quotes Buddhas. It's just one of the most profound things I've ever heard. It's, Buddha said, no thought, no problem. Isn't that great? No thought, no problem. He says that an ego has to have a story and it has to have time. So if you drop your story and you stay in the now, you're in that middle piece, that middle wonder, where everything's possible. The middle is the possibilities. The middle is our interpretation. You know, you have spirit and you love it, but you don't want to evaporate. And you have stuff and you love it, but you want to be able to move. So the middle is where you interpret. This is where, in the middle, does it have everything it takes to go into form? Yes. Are you going to let it go to liquid? Are you going to surrender and allow the metamorphosis to happen so that you emerge a butterfly? I think that's all I have. Thank you.